All right, everybody, welcome into another episode of the College Court Report podcast. Two-man show again. Myself, Tyler Bennett, joined with Ryan Scarfone. Ryan, how you doing, bud?
Doing well, man. I'm done exams, ready to talk college hoops. Let's get it on.
Yeah, it was a quiet week across the board. Everybody's doing their final exams, and I guess that's the focus for the student athletes because they're student athletes, not athlete students. They don't a lot of them go to school for sport, but I mean they got to do their classes as well. So put a precedent on that this week. They play school and they go for sport.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I don't play, so I just play school full time. But didn't have too many hard exams. I just had two, but hopefully it killed them. I think I did. Basically it. Did you have exams? No, because you're not in school.
I don't go to school.
Lucky.
I retired from playing school.
Did they hang up your jersey?
It's in the talks, It's in the talks of hanging up my typical hoodie I wore to school, put that in the rafters at Brock University. Down Thistle Hallway,
Well, when they do, I want to be invited. I want to be there to soak up the atmosphere as you get your nice sweater retired.
I didn't want to spend more time there than I had to be there, so chances are they're probably not, but you never know.
Yeah, you got the hell out of there.
I went to school, did my time, and left.
Give me that piece of paper.
Got out of prison real quick. It was a great time, great feeling,
Yeah, you didn't go
2 years clean of school, so 2 years clean of school. It feels good. Still paying off that loan though.
OSAP. OSAP? More like oh snap.
Oh shit, still going. But the big week ahead, heading into Christmas, we got quite a few big games coming up involving some of the top 25 teams. The new rankings were just released about an hour ago. Villanova State at number 1, Michigan State is 2, and Arizona State undefeated and moved up to number 3. Three of the biggest changes were Oklahoma jumped up to 17 after handling Wichita State, who fell out of the top 10. And then your Fighting Irish, after a loss to Indiana, fell out of the top 25, much to your delight. What are your thoughts on this week's top 25, Ryan?
Looks good. A lot of new faces in a lot of different places. What I notice, Arizona State still going strong, 10-0, number 3. The number 1 and number 2 spot didn't change. Didn't expect that to happen. 4, 5, and 6, ACC heavy. Duke, North Carolina, and Miami. They look like the leaders, obviously, in the ACC that are going to be one of the last teams standing in the ACC championship. It looks like they all look really good. North Carolina's exceeded my expectations a bit. I didn't really think, with the players that they lost, I didn't really think that. And, it looked very Joel Berry heavy at the beginning, but they're starting to, exceed my expectations, 10-1. And when I was talking to you earlier, Kentucky, they're just kind of, I don't really hear much about Kentucky. I mean, they're always going to get pressed, but like not as much as they used to. They're just kind of sliding under the radar. Number 7, 9-1, casually being there. Have you really heard anything about Kentucky this year?
No, and like the reason why they're ranked so high, even though they're predominantly freshmen and sophomores, they're there based on the name and based on hype that they always have. They don't really have – they're not as talented as they have been in the years past. I think that's common knowledge across the board. But I don't know if they've really proven that they're worthy of being that high yet. The loss to Kansas in the Champions Classic, that was an ugly game all around on both sides. With a lot of young guys, you're going to get a lot of hiccups early on in the season. And, I mean, yeah, they're ranked 7. Is it worth being that high? I mean, they're 9-1. I'm not really sold on Kentucky yet. I'll wait till SEC play and see how that unfolds early on. You'll probably see them drop a couple early games and fall maybe to the 20s or maybe even out of the top 25. But strictly based on name, that's why they're where they are. And you can say the same about Kansas, who's in at 14. 8-2. They're there because of name. They're there because of what could be, not what has been so far. And yeah, I don't think either team's worthy of the ranking that they are right now. It's a little high. They haven't really proven themselves too much, but that's why we're not on the polls to vote, and we just speculate and give our opinion. But yeah, I don't think they're worthy of the
Yeah.
spots they have so far.
Well, like so far they've been playing like teams like East Tennessee State, Fort Wayne, UIC Flames, Harvard, Monmouth. Um, Tough game or not tough. I don't know. You got UCLA coming up after their win against Virginia Tech, and they got Louisville, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Texas A&M. So that's a pretty challenging slate that they got coming up. LSU, like regardless of their losses, they still looked like a pretty good team. But when I saw them, so
Mm-hmm.
we'll see how that one goes. But yeah, I'm not really willing to give Kentucky a high spot until
No.
I see those games. They could start exceeding expectations, but we'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, but that win over Virginia Tech, that's a big win because the Hokies are talented. They're going to be a sleeper team in the ACC. That was a big win for a young Kentucky team. But like you said, this upcoming stretch of games with UCLA on the weekend and um, whoever else they have going forward, this will be a telling stretch of games for them. Um, be interesting to see how they handle playing strong teams back to back to back. And like I said, they may drop one or two games and they could fall down the rankings and maybe out of the top 25. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and then so going back to the top 25, Wichita State dropping to 11. They lost not really a close, like it was about what 8 points.
It was convincing. It was a convincing game by Oklahoma. They kind of led
Yeah.
wire to wire. Didn't really give them a chance to get set and get in their rhythm. And Trae Young was just outstanding. So we'll get to
Oh,
that
absolutely.
later.
And then obviously you were saying my Notre Dame Fighting Irish fell out as I predicted. I don't know where I don't know if I predicted it on here or maybe it was off the record or in an article. I don't know. It was definitely not an article, but I predicted that eventually you will not see them in the top 25. A lot of people on Twitter were saying, this is kind of just like a hiccup. This is um, you know, they lost their mojo a bit, but they'll get now. And I didn't believe that because they looked like a very um, they look like a very different team from last year. Obviously, they don't have the depth. And I just by the way the games have been playing out, even the games against opponents that they should have smacked, they struggled a little early against them. And if you're ranked in the top 5 like they were at one time, you shouldn't be struggling. I mean, every team is capable of beating any team on any given day. College is a different game. You're dealing with 18
Mm-hmm.
to 22-year-olds, but I definitely think that if you're a top 5 team, you shouldn't really have a problem with these teams. But they've had their struggles. And when I was watching the Indiana game to start off, I could see that Mike Bray's starting to put a lot more guys in. He's probably realizing that we can't win with just our starting 5. Like that's not going to work. So let's get the bench. And I liked it.
No.
I didn't watch the end of the game, but I know from what my dad said and for you said, like it wasn't really a good ending. So I'm not really surprised that they're out of the top 25. I don't think they deserve it unless they start beating, obviously good ACC teams. Then that's when they should get back in there. But I don't really see it happening. I think come the ACC play, they're going to start struggling against, likes of Louisville, even though they're not ranked. I think obviously Miami, North Carolina, Duke. So
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the only real consistency they've had is Bonzi Colson. Outside of that, Matt Farrell's had his ups and downs. He was kind of quiet against Indiana. He was Gebbin was a non-factor against the Hoosiers. Gibbs has his good days, has his bad days, like everybody does. Rex Pfluger hasn't really had much on offense all season. So you need someone else to be a consistent second behind Bonzi. And they don't have that right now. and their bench has been non-existent, as you said, from the start of the season. Basically, nobody's really stepped up. DJ Harvey hasn't really grasped those opportunities that he's been given, and it's just losing 3 of their last 5 heading into ACC play in the next couple weeks is never going to be a good thing. And they've got to kind of iron out those kinks now in the last week and a half of 2017 before the calendar flips and the weekly grind of ACC play is upon them. But right now they haven't really proven anything that they're worthy of that top 25 ranking, let alone being a top 5 team like they were when they played Michigan State just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think now, like, I remember saying, like, after the Michigan State loss and when the depth issues really became apparent, because Wichita State, they couldn't really do it. They couldn't really expose them. I said from now until their game against Georgia Tech on December 30th, that's when they got to start getting, they got to start determining who they are and what they can't do. And obviously they can't just win with their starters. And, for the first little bit after that Michigan State loss, I didn't see Mike Bray starting to put in guys, like new guys, try to get them with like in the rotation and it more a part of the offense. What I saw more reliance on the starting 5 and even more minutes. Like I think in the Delaware game, they had like 3 guys play like 39 minutes, so they were hardly taken out. And I always said that's going to be, that's going to be their downfall, and it's now starting to show with Indiana. And coming into ACC play, when I see games like NC State, Louisville, Clemson, Virginia Tech, I honestly can't. I'm not, well, obviously with Duke and North Carolina, I'm not really high hopes for them just by the way that they're playing. But even against like the likes of Virginia Tech, Syracuse been not bad. They had a nice comeback win against Georgetown, and then NC State. Like I can't specifically say or definitively say like yeah they're gonna win because they honestly haven't been the team that I expected them to play, like to be like. So they're Mike Bray over this.
No,
I know that they're playing games from now until the new year, but come the new year, there's got to be a real change. And I think it starts with, just keep, I know that they still lost by playing more guys, but you gotta still do that. You can't just say, we're not going to play more guys because obviously playing our starting 5 worked for a little bit. I mean, we beat Wichita, but that was at the beginning of the season when everyone was starting to get, familiar with what they had. That that's what happens at the beginning of the season. So now that teams are starting to settle in, and you have like teams like, Oklahoma starting to come in with their own, and Miami and North Carolina starting to come in with their own. You can't just rely on what you used to do. You got to adapt. I think that's what you'll start to see. Don't know if it's going to lead to wins, but like I said, we'll see.
Only time will tell. But you mentioned Oklahoma coming off a big win over Wichita State this past week. A couple weeks ago, we had the debate of Trae Young or Collin Sexton. Who would you rather have? You went with Sexton at the time. I went with Trae Young. Not to brag, but told you so. Trae Young has been unreal this year. 28.8 points per game, 3.6 rebounds, 8.9 assists, 2.1 steals, 47% shooting from the field. Would you change your answer? Would you now take Young over Sexton if you were given that question again?
Well, obviously Trae Young's averaging more in every category than Collin Sexton. Actually, well, they're averaging the same rebounds per game, but if it was like a fantasy league, obviously I'd be taking Trae Young. But then again, who else does Oklahoma have to turn to? They have, just the likes of Trae Young, whereas Collin Sexton, there's a couple other guys like Bryson Key. But is Bryson Key hurt?
Braxton Key?
Braxton Key?
He was. I think he's back now.
Bryson Key.
We just make up names over here. We don't care. Travarius Young.
Hey, I didn't say it. You did.
I know I did.
But yeah, obviously I would take Trae. I mean, the guy is, Oklahoma wasn't really supposed to be that much of a factor. And you never know what freshmen can do, even though no matter what their star ranking is, you never know, how they're going to adapt to the college system. And he's just taken off. I mean, He dropped 29 points, 10 assists, 4 rebounds in the game against Wichita State. He's shown up in every single game this season.
Mm-hmm.
He's averaging 28.8 points per game, 3.6 rebounds per game, and almost 9 assists per game. So that's just unheard of. And it begs the question, like, I remember we were talking about this before, like, I remember you said if he does well, if Oklahoma does well, he's probably gone after this year. But, like we said before, this is the school that he grew up loving. He's from Norman, Oklahoma. That is Sooner country. So, a player like this who really makes college basketball interesting, I obviously hope he doesn't leave, but I could definitely see him leaving after this year. But what are your thoughts?
I think he'll be one of those players that he's kind of fringe top 10 pick right now. He'll be one of those guys that will declare early, but without an agent, kind of go through that pre-draft the pre-draft process, kind of get a feel for where he stands from scouts and NBA personnel, and where he's projected to go. And I think if he's not a top 10 pick, maybe like a lottery pick, top 14, he'll come back. Like you said, he's at his hometown school where he wants to be. He can really help change that program or build off what Buddy Hield did and keep Oklahoma towards the top of the Big 12. And like you said, they weren't supposed to be much of a factor this season, but with the emergence of Young and how he's done on both ends of the floor, I could see him definitely being one of those players that pulls a Miles Bridges and maybe stays a second year, make up for lost time. Maybe they don't reach the goals that they want to reach as a team this year, and he comes back and wants to be a part of that school a little bit longer. And I could see him doing both. I could see him going to the NBA. I could see him staying in school, but I think he's one of those guys that will declare early without an agent, go through the process, get a feel for where he stands, get a feel for what he needs to improve on to become an everyday player in the NBA, and then make a decision closer to the deadline, and very likely could return back to school. So it's one of those wait and see kind of situations, even though he's playing out of his mind right now. You can't really make a call in mid-December on what a player is going to do until the season ends, because you never know what could happen. You never know how the cards will unfold, or for both him or the team. So wait and see on Trae Young.
Oh, absolutely. And with how Oklahoma's playing, like they have a legitimate shot to do good things, in the Big 12 tournament and in the March Madness, should they get there. I have a feeling that they will get there. And I could see that, a close loss or a heartbreaking end to the season, I feel like that could really propel Trae Young to come back. This isn't just any school for him. This is, the school that he grew up loving. So if they lose like that, I feel like he wouldn't want to end his career on such a, depending on what the loss is, like what the circumstances are. I don't think he would want to leave on those terms. So I could definitely see him pulling a Miles Bridges and coming back.
And I think it'd be good for college basketball as a whole, like you said.
Oh, yeah.
It'd be good for the Big 12 and Oklahoma, keep them relevant, and maybe bring in some more top-rated recruits. I mean, if they see Young's back, okay, that might help on the recruiting trail. Maybe not 2018 class, but maybe 2019, so next year. Who knows how it will unfold and how people will react both in the Oklahoma community and around college basketball. I think that'd be a nightmare for the rest of the Big 12 if he came back for another year. But I know. For selfishly, I hope he comes back. But for his career, you got to do what's best for you. And if that means going to the NBA after 1 year, you do you. Do you, young fella.
I mean, it's easy for us to say, oh, yeah, come back. But if we were in their position and, a big fat contract was right in front of us for, endorsements and to sign with a team, I'm going to be honest, I would give it a thought. There's no way I'd be like, nope, going right back to school. There's no way I'd be doing that.
But going back to school too also has its benefits. Like, you're getting a fallback plan just in case an injury
Well,
comes up, like
obviously,
get that 4 year education. Like be a Doug McDermott or a Buddy Hield. Get your 4 years, get your degree, and then go pro.
but you can always get your degree after when you're done playing basketball.
But why not get it while you play basketball?
Get your money now while you still can, while you're good, and then go back.
No. It's all about being mature.
It's kind of like just seizing an opportunity when, it's at its best, and then going back to get your. I would totally understand if, a lot of athletes are doing that. They're going back to school to finish a semester in the off season of their sport. Um, you know, go when go when your value is the highest, and don't risk an injury. I know injuries can happen anywhere, but if it's in college basketball, that could really, affect your pro status. So go to the pros while you're valuable, and then come back to school. I know you can't play, but come back and then get your degree, because they're allowed to. They still get the scholarship to go back. So
I think I'm just salty because I was never that good at sports to be in that position.
and you love the NCAA college basketball, so you want it to have the best players it can have.
Selfishly. But I also love it because it's different every 4 years. Like there's always new players coming in, new players leaving, and there's always that revolving door of players. Whereas the NBA is the same shit every week, every year.
Hot take.
Hate it. Can't stand it. It's ridiculous. And
Well,
this whole concept of super teams is appalling.
it's becoming really predictable, I'd have to say, for anybody listening who is an NBA fan. That's just my opinion. That's just Tyler's opinion.
And it's the right
I respect
opinion.
anybody's.
It's the right opinion.
I respect anybody's opinion if they like the NBA. I've heard a lot of people say, well, in the NBA, guys make their shots. There's a lot of great plays, but at the same time, at times it's very slow paced. Some guys are walking on defense, or just not. They don't play defense. They're walking up the court on offense. Drives me nuts. Whereas in the NCAA, if you're walking, coach is going to chew your ear out. And I mean, like, these coaches in the NBA don't really have much of a say over these players.
No.
Maybe like, Greg Popovich obviously does, but like other coaches, like Cleveland's coach, he has no say over LeBron. So, and with these guys in the NCAA, they're trying to get somewhere, so they're going to ball out every night, and they're not playing, for a paycheck. So, it's either they ball out now and get their money, or they don't, and then they don't move on with basketball. So, I like college basketball obviously better. I choose it over NBA. It's to be honest, it's really hard for me just sit down and watch a midweek game, just because it's just so dry. And I mean, when the playoffs come around, that's a different story. That's when, LeBron always says, that's when I turn on another gear. Well, that should really say something about how lackluster the regular season is if he if he doesn't really care about it, you know what I mean?
But it's the same teams every single year in the finals. If I have to hear about Golden State, Cleveland in the finals for a 4th year in a row, I'm going to
I hear you,
poke
man.
my eyes out, cut my ears off. It's ridiculous. And you got these college guys who will play through any sort of injury. You get a guy in the NBA who's a stubbed toe, he's out for 3 weeks. Soft.
That's true.
You got these young kids who are playing for their careers, playing to make it to the next level. So they're gonna, like you said, they're gonna ball out every single night. And the NBA, it's predictable as can be. It's the same teams are good every single year. You'll never see the Raptors in the NBA Finals. No matter how good the regular season will be, they don't make the money on TV as the NBA. So you can guarantee the Raptors won't make the finals.
I've said this before with my friends. We've had this discussion. We were like, will the Raptors ever win the NBA Finals? And I said, there's obviously a chance for every team to win, but the way the league is set up, obviously they would make less money than if obviously an American team got in, but it's just the way the league's set up. It's not suited for the Raptors to do well, and the Raptors are doing well enough to make a lot of money, and so they're just riding that, making the playoffs, but they're not winning at all. And a lot of people also say, with going back to colleges, they say, well, Duke's good every year, North Carolina's good every year, but do you realize the way that the NCAA tournament is set up? Even if you're number one, it is still incredibly
Mm-hmm.
hard to go through that gauntlet of a March Madness tournament and win. That it's hard for any team, no matter if you're number one or you're number 16th. Like it's just whereas the NBA playoffs, it's pretty easy. You're only dealing with 8 teams, and you're not even going to play some of the best teams that get eliminated. Obviously, you could still say that with college, but it's just a different game.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say. Just give me college basketball all day. The NBA could stop, and I wouldn't miss a beat. So, but looking forward to this week. Big events coming up over Christmas. The Diamond Head Classic in Hawaii. You've got Middle Tennessee and Princeton, Akron and USC, Davidson, New Mexico State, which will be a good game, and then 6th-ranked Miami taking on host Hawaii in the nightcap on the 22nd. Marquee event every year. Only games that are played on Christmas is this event. Just going to go through and make some predictions before we sign off for the day. Middle Tennessee, Princeton. It's a good. Go ahead, Ryan.
I'm going to go with the Ivy Leaguers in Princeton.
Ooh, interesting. That's a hot take. Middle Tennessee, no hesitation. It'll be a good game to start off the event. Miles Stevens and Devin Kennedy will give Middle Tennessee some fits. But the Blue Raiders, they're clicking. They had a tough loss against Auburn on Saturday. But
how many guys did Princeton lose last year from last year's team?
Henry Caruso transferred to Iowa State? No. He went to Santa Clara, I think, and then Hans Brace went to Iowa State. That's really all they've lost.
Because they really stuck it to the Irish in the first round. They almost beat them.
Yeah. You put me on the spot. I know those two guys transferred. I got the schools mixed up. I think Caruso went to Santa Clara, and then Brace went to Iowa State. But I could see it could go either way. It'll be a close game. Like Princeton will be at the top of the Ivy League this year. But I'm going to go with Middle Tennessee. They're just one of the best. They're arguably the best team in the Conference USA coming in right now, and yeah, I think they're just clicking on all cylinders. And Hans Brace went to Iowa State, and Caruso went to Santa Clara. So we got that rectified.
Still going with Princeton.
Okay, well, to each their own. I'll go Middle Tennessee. You go Princeton. Game number 2, Akron, USC. I think that one's pretty clear.
Oh, very clear. Akron's going to win.
100%. 100%.
USC's going to win.
100% the Zips. No. USC hasn't really lived up to the potential. Start the year 6-3, but against an Akron team who was riddled by transfers, lost their head coach in the offseason. I think Benny Boatwright and company will thump the Zips of Akron.
What was that name?
Benny Boatwright.
What was that name? Dope name.
Trojan Fury going to reign supreme over the Zips. Game 3, Davidson, New Mexico State. Get the high-octane offense of Davidson with Peyton Aldridge up front and John Axel Goodmanson in the back end. Talented freshman Kellen Grady against New Mexico State. Zach Lofton, Jamario Jones, and company. Who do you go with on that one?
I'm going with the Steph Curry alma mater in Davidson. They're going to win big.
You're going to win big. Okay, interesting. No, I'm going to go New Mexico State just for the hell of it. They've been playing well as of late. Jamario Jones put up a triple-double this past week. Mind you, it was against a non-Division One opponent, but regardless, at that level, putting up a triple double in a game is a talent is a feat amongst itself. So I just think the Aggies are clicking right now. They've my gut feeling says Aggies, so I'm going to go with my gut and go with New Mexico State. Last one, number 6, Miami, undefeated, and Hawaii. I think this one's pretty clear again. Hawaii, 100%. No hesitation.
I think I'm gonna. Yeah, with the night, even though it's a nightcap, I'm going with the Hurricanes. Extend their undefeated streak, and I think they're gonna win big.
Yeah, no, I think Miami's obviously the clear team to beat in the event, and I think having a Miami and either Middle Tennessee or USC final would be the dream scenario for tournament organizers and basketball fans alike. Gives you the best game in the final. So we'll see. It's 4 games on Christmas. I mean, you can't really ask for much more than that. So, um, any closing thoughts, Ryan, before we sign her off for the day?
No, just excited for next week's games, and especially for my Irish. Hopefully, they can get back in the win column with a win over Dartmouth. So preview for that will be coming out tomorrow. That's it for me.
Yeah, Irish got to get their heads out of their asses and get back on the right track before the new year kicks around. But
Yep.
for us, that is it. Thanks for tuning in. We will chat with you next week. Enjoy the games this week. Enjoy the holidays with your family and friends and loved ones. And we'll talk with you at some point next week. Cheers.
Cheers. Merry Christmas.